Chapter 1. Dad, Mom, I've agreed to come back to our hometown for matchmaking and marriage. I'll be back at the end of this month. It was early spring, the weather still cold. Rosalie Atherton spoke on the phone as she opened the door, her soft voice drifting away with the drizzling rain. She pulled her collar tighter, hearing her parents let out a long sigh of relief on the other end. Rosalie, dear, your father and I haven't been in the best of health these past few years. We just hoped you could settle down sooner. It's good that you've thought it through. When you get back, I'll have Auntie Laura arrange for you to meet a few suitable prospects. Hearing that her parents had already started making arrangements, Rosalie's eyes flickered, a sense of unreality washing over her. After a few more pleasantries, the call ended. She glanced around the apartment, then went back to her bedroom and began to clear things out. A thick stack of love letters in a drawer, several photo albums of secretly taken pictures hidden in a closet, and years' worth of diaries on the bookshelf, all about a secret love, all connected to that person named Lucas Albright. Now she tossed them into a box, carried it downstairs, and without any hesitation, set it all on fire. As the orange flames flickered, Rosalie suddenly heard footsteps behind her. She instinctively looked up and saw Lucas Albright, tall and distinguished in his crisp pilot uniform. He had clearly just returned from a flight. Seeing her downstairs, he gave a slight smile. Burning something? He bent down and picked up a pink letter that hadn't completely burned, raising an eyebrow. A love letter? You wrote love letters. Who were they for? Rosalie stared at him, about to speak, but he just chuckled, tossed the letter into the fire, and ruffled her hair. All right, I was just teasing you. Why so serious? I don't care about my current girlfriend's past, nor will I dig into it. Come back inside when you're done burning it. It's cold out here. With that, he didn't linger and stepped into the elevator. After his figure completely disappeared, Rosalie looked away, a somewhat bitter smile playing on her lips. Did he not care, or was he simply indifferent? His name was written on the envelope. He would have seen it if he had just looked closely. But in the end, he chose to throw it into the fire. She had secretly loved her boyfriend for 10 whole years, and yet he had no idea. At 15, Rosalie, due to her excellent grades, was exceptionally transferred to a high school in the big city. Back then, she was ordinary, didn't know how to dress, drab and unnoticed, with no presence at all. Lucas Albright was her classmate. At that time, he was like the bright moon from a prominent family, strikingly handsome, someone she felt she could never reach. The first time she saw him was on the first day of school. She had boarded the bus only to find her transit pass was missing. The students queuing behind her complained impatiently, saying if she didn't have money, she should walk. They muttered that if she were pretty it would be one thing, but her dowdy dress was an eyesore. Her face flushed with shame. Just as she was about to get off, a pair of slender hands reached out from the front and paid her fare. She thanked the person gratefully, but when she looked up and saw the boy's devastatingly handsome face, she blushed and stammered, unable to speak properly. Fellow student, my name is Rosalie Atherton. May I ask which class you're in? I'll pay you back. His voice was very pleasant, but he simply said, no need. Later, she learned his name was Lucas Albright, the campus idol of Northwood High, and also a notorious playboy whose girlfriends changed every 3 days. From that day on, her gaze would unconsciously linger on Lucas Albright. She noticed his desk overflowed with love letters, yet she still stayed up late writing her own, her affection for him growing more abundant. She knew he liked pretty and outstanding girls, so she studied hard, lost weight, learned makeup, and changed her timid, insecure personality. She strived to become better, just to be worthy of him. Finally, she got into the same university as him, and because of her dramatic transformation, she was finally noticed by Lucas Albright. In their sophomore year, Lucas approached her. He didn't remember her as his high school classmate at all, just smiled and asked if she wanted to be his girlfriend. She fought back the urge to cry and nodded. Later, she became his 78th girlfriend and also his last. After they got together, Lucas wasn't like before, breaking up after 3 days. Instead, he seriously dated her for 6 years. Everyone said he was genuinely in love this time, that the playboy had reformed. Rosalie also believed she had obtained what she had yearned for in her youth. Countless nights, sleeping beside him, looking at his sleeping face, her heart was filled with joy. Until 3 days ago, when Lucas got drunk. She went to pick him up and accidentally overheard his conversation with his friend. The friend had his arm around him. "Old Luke, you've been with that girlfriend for 6 years, right? Still not breaking up?" Lucas's voice was hoarse, clearly drunk. "Not yet. She'll think I'm not devoted enough. I tell you, you're utterly fixated on that Sylvia Morgan. Back then, you confessed to her, she rejected you, and you let yourself become a playboy, changing girlfriends every 3 days just to forget her. Later, she came back to you but thought you weren't devoted enough, asking you to show her a stable relationship before she'd consider it. So you just randomly found someone and dated her for 6 years. You're really in deep." It was noisy inside, and no one noticed Rosalie standing outside the door. Feeling as if she had plunged into an icy abyss, she had heard the name Sylvia Morgan before. She was from the high school next to Northwood High. But she never thought that Lucas liked her, and she never imagined she was just a tool for Lucas to demonstrate his love for someone else. Her youth, her 10 years, crumbled spectacularly. It turned out the wind could blush a girl's cheek, but couldn't move a boy's heart. It turned out the person who had confined her youth had never once looked back, never once glanced at her. She had figured it out and finally decided to withdraw. So she agreed to the matchmaking arranged by her family. "Lucas Albright, today is the 10th year I've liked you, and it's also the first day I've decided to stop liking you." Chapter 2, After burning everything, Rosalie Atherton didn't go home immediately, but sat on a bench outside for a very long time. When she pushed open the door, Lucas Albright was already asleep, but his phone on the bedside table was vibrating incessantly. She walked over, intending to turn it off, but accidentally opened his messaging app. Upon opening it, the screen was filled with chat logs between him and Sylvia Morgan. "Luke, what a coincidence I didn't expect to be on your flight on my trip back. I never thought someone as irreverent as you could become such a calm in-crisis captain." Lucas remained silent for a long time before replying. "Do you really not know why I became a captain?" Sylvia sent a smiling emoji. "Could it be because of me? Just because I said I like guys in captain uniforms?" Lucas replied with only one word, yet it was enough to shatter all of Rosalie's hopes. "Yes." Her eyes suddenly reddened, tears flowing uncontrollably. She quickly wiped them away. As she exited the chat interface, she saw the prominent pinned icon. And below it, strikingly, was her chat box, which also had an icon. But it was "Do Not Disturb." Love and lack of love, just a slight difference in wording, yet truly a world apart. But it didn't matter, she had already withdrawn. He had waited for the person he liked. She too would start a new life. Each got what they wished for, a perfect outcome for both. The next day, when the alarm Rosalie had set woke her, she discovered Lucas had already left. He hadn't said where he was going, but she knew he had gone to find Sylvia Morgan. After all, Sylvia had casually mentioned last night that she wanted to eat at that dim sum place near their old school, and he had immediately booked a table on an app. Rosalie didn't dwell on it. She had her own things to do. After breakfast, she put on some makeup, took her bag, went to the company, and completed her resignation procedures. At noon, she met up with a few of her university roommates for a farewell lunch. The girls at the table all knew about her 10-year secret crush. Hearing that she planned to break up and go back to her hometown for matchmaking, they all sighed, feeling she had wasted the best 10 years of her life. "Rosalie, are you just going to leave quietly like this? Don't you feel wronged? Are you really not going to tell Lucas about all the things you silently did for him during all those years you secretly loved him before you go? Yeah, you liked him so much, are you really not going to fight for it anymore? If you tell him, maybe he'll ask you to stay. 10 years, even a heart of stone would be moved." Although what Lucas did was really scummy, the person who was truly with him for 6 years was you. That girl left the country a long time ago, right? Maybe he just has some kind of youthful obsession with her. Rosalie knew they were all feeling sorry for her, but her mind was made up. She didn't want to do these pointless things anymore. She gently shook her head. "He doesn't like me. Saying anything is meaningless. It's better to make a clean break and leave with dignity." Seeing her so resolute, everyone found it hard to persuade her further and could only sigh, wishing her to find someone better. They chatted for over an hour before finally parting ways. After finishing her last glass of wine, Rosalie returned home, still feeling quite energetic. She took advantage of the good weather and cleared out everything she had bought over the years. Matching couples' clothes and mugs, a cabinet full of dolls won from claw machines over several years, the razor in the bathroom, the dressing table piled high with cosmetics, item by item, all meticulously chosen and bought by her. Now all ended up in the trash. The once cozy bedroom, kitchen, and living room became empty and desolate. But Rosalie knew that after she left, these empty spaces would soon be filled with new items. They would all have a common, new female owner, Sylvia Morgan. For the next 3 or 4 days, Lucas didn't come home, nor did he send a single message. Rosalie didn't care where he went and slowly packed her luggage. Friday was her birthday. She went out, ordered a cake, and bought herself a bouquet of fresh flowers. She had just put the flowers in a vase when she received a call from Lucas. "Rosalie, I'm downstairs at your company. Your colleagues said you resigned." "What happened?" Hearing this, a trace of surprise flashed across Rosalie's face. In all the time they had been together, Lucas had never picked her up from work. Although she didn't know why he had this sudden whim, she couldn't tell him the real reason for her resignation and made up an excuse. "I've been too tired lately, wanted to rest at home for a while." Lucas didn't press further, just asked for her address, saying he would pick her up and take her somewhere. Half an hour later, the two met at her apartment door, and Rosalie got into the car. She didn't ask him where he was going, nor did she ask why he hadn't come back these past few days. She just quietly watched the scenery outside the window, silent all the way. Chapter 3. After the car stopped, Lucas didn't wait for her and went in first. Rosalie followed him inside and only then realized it was a birthday party. However, she wasn't the star, it was someone else. Seeing Sylvia Morgan standing in the center of the stage, surrounded by admirers like the moon by stars, Rosalie instantly understood that Sylvia was the main character of this banquet. She wore a gorgeous haute couture gown, a custom diamond necklace accentuating her slender neck, and pearl earrings that sparkled like mermaid tears, so beautiful it was hard to look away. Rosalie stared at these pieces of jewelry for a long time. She knew them intimately, for no other reason than that these items had been displayed in Lucas's showcase before being used. Before she knew the truth, she thought these were all gifts he had prepared for her and had looked forward to them for a long time. But so much time had passed, year after year, he would prepare them every year but never took them out. Gradually, she had forgotten about them. It wasn't until she saw them again today that she realized they were all for Sylvia Morgan. Perhaps noticing her gaze, Sylvia lifted her skirt and approached, a gentle smile on her lips. "Luke, is this the girlfriend you've dated for 6 years and promised to bring to meet me? She's really beautiful." No wonder she could capture the heart of our great campus idol. So, it was Sylvia who wanted to meet her. No wonder Lucas would act out of character and bring her here. Rosalie finally understood his intentions and laughed self-deprecatingly. A few of his friends saw this and came over, chiming in indignantly. "Yeah, dated for 6 years. Old Luke is really obedient and devoted. We also hope certain people can keep their promises and stop pulling strange tests. There aren't many sincere people these days. If you get one, cherish them. If you truly let them down, it'll be too late for regrets." The friends brazenly spoke up for Lucas, thinking Rosalie couldn't understand. And just as they thought, she showed no expression and casually found a seat, quietly playing the role of a trophy girlfriend who couldn't guess their charades. All night, Rosalie didn't leave her seat, quietly watching Lucas, who was following Sylvia Morgan. He usually disliked socializing, yet he would accompany Sylvia to chat with the young masters of their circle. He clearly had a personality that found interest in nothing, yet he remembered Sylvia's dislikes and preferences, blocking drinks for her. His girlfriend was right there, yet he got jealous and sulked because Sylvia shook hands with another man. In just a few short hours, Rosalie saw the unconscious care Lucas showed when he liked someone. After 6 years together, she finally saw clearly what he was like when he was in love. After the birthday song was sung in the center of the stage, everyone flocked to present birthday gifts. Lucas was last, taking out the deed to a manor, his eyes full of warmth. "Syl, you once said you wanted a warm home, so I'm giving you a manor. I hope your wish comes true." Hearing this, several friends around them started cheering him on. "You guys don't know, all the rooms in this manor were designed by old Luke himself. It took a full 6 years to renovate. I heard the back garden is full of lavender and tulips. I wonder whose favorite flowers those are." A warm home, in my opinion, needs a male host to be truly warm, don't you think? Sylvia's face slowly turned crimson amidst the teasing. She quickly clasped her hands, pretending to make a wish, and everyone fell silent. In the silence, Rosalie's phone chimed a few times. It was a voice message from her father. She was about to press and hold to convert it to text, but accidentally played it. "Rosalie, happy birthday, it's almost midnight. Have you had any cake?" The gazes originally focused on Sylvia instantly shifted to Rosalie, all filled with shock. Lucas also froze for a few seconds, then turned to look at her, his brow slightly furrowed. "Rosalie, is your birthday today?" Rosalie's face showed no emotion as she gently nodded. In the past, Lucas would ask about the date in advance and prepare a gift. But this year, it coincided with Sylvia's birthday, so he had completely forgotten. It seemed normal. No one expected such a coincidence, and for a moment, everyone looked at each other in dismay. In the end, it was Sylvia who smoothed things over. She pulled Rosalie to the cake and personally lit a candle. "Since it's such a coincidence, let's celebrate together. You make a wish too." Rosalie didn't refuse and closed her eyes. After she made her wish to break the awkward atmosphere, Lucas casually asked, "What did you wish for? Is there any gift you want?" Rosalie glanced at him and said lightly, "I hope to get married smoothly within this year." Chapter 4. The moment these words came out, the entire hall fell silent. Only Sylvia Morgan chuckled. She turned to face Lucas Albright, her words drawn out and thought-provoking. "Luke, it seems your girlfriend is very much looking forward to you fulfilling her wish within this year. You'd better hurry. If it happens, remember to invite me to the wedding." Lucas's stunned face gradually turned ashen at her words. Rosalie knew he was angry and was about to explain, but he interrupted her. "Sylvia Morgan, do you find this amusing? Do you want to play me to death before you're satisfied? You clearly know." These angry accusations were not directed at Rosalie. They were aimed at Sylvia, who had just been teasing. Looking at his resentful, hesitant expression, everyone knew what he was angry about. He was angry at Sylvia's feigned ignorance, at her attitude of once again trampling his feelings underfoot. The atmosphere in the room thoroughly chilled. Lucas violently kicked over a nearby chair, grabbed his car keys, and slammed the door as he left. A perfectly good birthday party ended on such a sour note. Seeing people around them starting to say their goodbyes, Rosalie lowered her eyes, picked up her bag, and went to the restroom. When she came out, the guests had left, and sounds of a heated argument came from the corridor. "Sylvia Morgan, you went too far today. Do you know how long old Luke prepared for this birthday? Why did you have to ruin his efforts and say such things in public to anger him?" "Wasn't I telling the truth? His girlfriend said she wants to get married. If not with him, then with whom? Damn it, is there any point in you saying these things? Old Luke has always liked you back then, you rejected him, and he was so hurt he became a playboy who trifled with life. Later, you beckoned, and he came running back. Then you complained he wasn't devoted enough, so he listened to you and dated this tool girlfriend. What more do you want? His sincere feelings aren't meant to be trampled by you like this. Nothing much. I just hadn't seen him so infatuated and wanted to see how far he would go for me. He did it willingly, so why are you worrying for him?" It was Sylvia, arguing with Lucas's childhood friend, Sean Yates. Rosalie had no intention of prying into their privacy, but she couldn't help but wonder what expression Lucas would have if he heard these words. Would he be heartbroken? Would he be as heartbroken as she was when she learned the truth, as if she had died? Between her and Lucas, he was the one in control. As long as he showed a little care, her emotions would fluctuate, and between Lucas and Sylvia, he became the subservient one. As long as Sylvia casually said she didn't care, he would fall apart. Yes, those who betray sincere hearts must swallow 10,000 needles. She turned and went down the stairs from the other side. After returning home, Rosalie picked up the cake she had left by the door and had a belated birthday celebration for herself. She only ate half of the 6-inch cake before going to rest. The next day at noon, she was awakened by a knock on the door. Rubbing her eyes, she got up to open it. It was Lucas. Having not seen him overnight, he seemed still angry, his expression not pleasant. But when his gaze met hers, he immediately forced a somewhat strained smile and took out a diamond bracelet from his pocket. "Happy birthday. This is your birthday gift. I drank too much yesterday and forgot to give it to you." Rosalie only glanced at it and recognized that this bracelet was a set with the necklace Sylvia had worn last night. She didn't like it, so he was regifting it to her, conveniently saving himself the trouble of picking out a gift. Could it be understood that way? Seeing her silent, Lucas thought she didn't like it and quickly added, "You don't like it? Then buy whatever you want yourself, use my card." Rosalie shook her head, reached out to take it, and casually placed it on the entryway cabinet. "I like it, no need for trouble." Chapter 5, Lucas Albright didn't ask further. He casually took off his jacket and placed it on the sofa. His peripheral vision caught the cake on the table and his gaze froze again. After a moment's hesitation, he couldn't help but speak. "Yesterday, that birthday wish you made, was it?" Seeing the probing in his eyes, Rosalie answered him in a joking tone. "Seeing that everyone didn't know it was my birthday, it was a bit awkward, so I made a joke. I didn't expect everyone to misunderstand. Sorry." Hearing this, Lucas finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Then what was your real wish?" "I hope my parents are healthy, and I hope all their wishes come true." It was a very simple and sincere wish. Lucas felt a stir in his heart. He reached up and gently tapped her nose, smiling slightly. "You're so dutiful, your wish will definitely come true." Rosalie thought so too. She would definitely be able to successfully go on matchmaking dates, get married, stay by her parents' side, and take care of them until they grew old. For the next few days, Lucas stayed at home, rarely going out. During this time, he also noticed that many things were missing from the house and asked a few times, "Rosalie, where did those matching mugs you bought go? They broke a few days ago. What about the tie you gave me?" "I'm not sure. It probably got blown away by the wind when it was drying." They were all insignificant small items, and Lucas didn't pay much attention. After Rosalie made excuses each time, she made a long list, preparing to eat at all the famous restaurants and try all the local snacks before leaving the city. All these years, to maintain her figure, she had been on a diet and eaten vegetarian food, and hadn't indulged herself in a long time. And the beauty she had painstakingly maintained had not brought her the love she desired. Lucas didn't like her, regardless of whether she was pretty or plain, fat or thin, wearing makeup or not. The beautiful appearance she had exchanged for her health was worthless in front of Sylvia Morgan and in Lucas's eyes. Those few pieces of birthday cake awakened Rosalie's long-suppressed appetite and also made her realize that it wasn't just love that could make her happy. Food, flowers, the concern of friends, the thoughts of family, these were all very important parts of life. She shouldn't neglect one for the other. Rosalie started going out more often, and Lucas noticed, stopping her. "Going out again? Where are you planning to go?" "To the west side of the city for dinner." "Meeting someone? Do you want me to drive you?" Lucas asked casually, looking at the continuous heavy rain outside. Rosalie shook her head, bending down to change her shoes. "Alone? I want to try Japanese food. No need to trouble you, I can just take a rideshare." Hearing this, Lucas glanced at her in surprise. He remembered that she ate very little for all 3 meals to maintain her weight. Why had she suddenly become so gluttonous? But it was good for her to eat more. She was too thin. He was somewhat worried that the wind outside would blow her away. Thinking of this, he remembered he had nothing to do in the afternoon, got up, picked up his jacket, and walked over to her. Together, "It's raining outside, I'll drive you." Rosalie didn't expect him to want to go and froze for a moment. The rain was getting heavier, and there were hardly any cars on the road. The ground was slippery. Lucas held the steering wheel with both hands and asked Rosalie to take out his phone and plug it in to charge. She did as he said. The moment she plugged in the charger, the screen lit up, flashing an unread message. "Old Luke coming to the bar gathering? Syl is here too." Rosalie glanced at it, intending to pretend she hadn't seen it, when she heard Lucas ask her to reply to the message for him. "Decline it. Just say you and I are going for Japanese food and don't have time." She turned her head and caught a fleeting, complex expression on his face. Displeasure mixed with some unwillingness, probing hidden with some expectation. Rosalie understood. Just as she finished typing and sent the message, the phone rang. It was Sylvia Morgan. Upon seeing it, Lucas's lips subconsciously curved up, but he hesitated to answer. After more than 10 seconds, he pretended he had just heard the ringtone, pulled over to the side of the road, and took the phone. "I already told you. Luke, a group of people just asked for my contact information and even got handsy." I got angry and smashed a bottle on them. Now they've cornered me at the club. You have to come save me. Chapter 6. Upon hearing that frantic, choked voice, Lucas Albright's face turned incredibly grim. He slammed on the accelerator, yanked the steering wheel, and made a sharp 180-degree U-turn. Caught off guard, Rosalie Atherton slammed into the car door, her forehead scraped by a dislodged ornament, leaving a 5-centimeter wound. Blood dripped down. She clutched her wound in pain, looking at Lucas with utter confusion. He hadn't noticed her injury at all, completely engrossed in the phone call, his eyes practically spitting fire, yet he suppressed it, forcing a calm and reassuring tone. Don't be afraid. Where are you now? Don't hang up. I'll be there within 5 minutes. The questions Rosalie was about to blurt out died in her throat at his words. She took some tissues from her bag and tended to her still bleeding wound. The GPS kept warning about speeding, but Lucas ignored it, running 7 or 8 red lights. Watching the speedometer needle practically max out, Rosalie adjusted her seatbelt. 5 minutes later, the car screeched to a halt in front of the bar. Lucas seemed to have forgotten there was another person in the car, unbuckled his seatbelt, and sprinted off. Watching his rapidly disappearing figure, Rosalie hesitated for a few seconds, then followed. As soon as she entered, she saw the tables in the main hall smashed to pieces and realized something was wrong. Noisy shouts came from a private room on the 2nd floor. As she went up, she saw 2 groups of people pushing each other. Near the private room door were Lucas, who had just arrived, and 4 or 5 of his friends. Rosalie also recognized the people on the other side, Neville Ingram, a notorious rival of Lucas in their circle. Lucas was handsome, had a good personality, and had been outstanding since childhood. Although his love life was a bit wild, which young master from a wealthy family didn't indulge. So it didn't stop him from being the other family's child that all wealthy families in their circle envied. Neville, however, was his opposite in every way: a party animal, a womanizer, a blight on their circle. Hating Lucas's excellence, he opposed Lucas in everything. Lucas, however, never paid him any attention, which further intensified Neville's hatred. Today, Lucas's white moonlight had smashed him, finally giving Neville an opportunity. He, along with a dozen of his cronies, surrounded the private room, his bandaged right hand still bleeding, his eyes dark and menacing. Lucas Albright, the security footage clearly shows your little darling started it. What? Are you going to twist the truth and protect her now? Lucas sneered, pulling the person into his arms protectively. What kind of compensation do you want? Just name your price. Seeing him so concerned, Neville gave a contemptuous smile, his eyes full of provocation. Compensation? She smashed my hand so bad it almost broke. Of course. We're going to the police station, we'll sue if we have to sue, and she'll go to jail if she has to go to jail. Hearing this, the faces of Lucas and his friends changed. Veins bulged on Lucas's forehead, but he could only suppress his anger, squeezing out a few words through gritted teeth. Is it necessary to make such a big deal out of something so small? What's the point of bullying a girl? If you want to pick a fight, come at me. Neville was waiting for exactly these words. His eyes darted around. He had one of his underlings bring the fruit knife from the table, his tone extremely vicious. All right, I won't make it difficult for you. She ruined my hand, you leave one of yours behind, and we'll call it even. As soon as he finished speaking, the sharp fruit knife was embedded in the door. Hearing this, Lucas's friends quickly shielded him, looking at Neville with fury. Neville, we're all in the same circle, don't go too far. Despite their words, no one knew better than Lucas how serious today's matter was. Neville had injured his hand today. Even if Lucas could temporarily resolve the incident, Neville hated him so much that he would definitely find opportunities for revenge in the future. If Neville couldn't get revenge on him, he would target his weakness. Sylvia Morgan was his weakness. Although he could protect Sylvia, the world was a big place, and there would always be places he couldn't watch over. He didn't want Sylvia to be in danger in the future. The best way was to settle everything today. After clearly thinking through the stakes, Lucas no longer hesitated and pushed aside the people around him. His friends were all shocked and rushed forward to grab his hand, telling him not to be foolish. Lucas Albright, are you damn crazy? You're a pilot. If you cripple your hand, your career is over. Is a woman worth it? But he showed an expression they had never seen before, looking coldly at Neville. You'll keep your word? Of course, After receiving an affirmative answer, Lucas pulled out the knife stuck in the door. Watching his actions, Rosalie's heart leaped to her throat. Before she could stop him, Lucas pulled Sylvia, who was already crying to the point of fainting from fear, into his arms, covering her eyes with his clothes and comforting her softly. "Don't be afraid, it'll be over soon." Then, under countless shocked gazes, Lucas raised the dagger and decisively plunged it into the palm of his right hand. A jet of blood spurted out like a fountain, splattering everywhere, a horrifying sight. His face instantly turned paler than paper, but he clenched his jaw tightly, only letting out a muffled groan, terrified of scaring the person in his arms. From beginning to end, he hadn't once looked at his official girlfriend, Rosalie Atherton, who stood nearby, her face deathly pale. Chapter 7. Lucas Albright was quickly rushed into the operating room. The Albright family, having received the news, hurried over. After hearing what happened from his friends, Eleanor Albright, Lucas's mother, was so angry she smashed the Buddhist prayer beads on her wrist on the spot. "He's been crazy over a woman for 10 years, and now he's crippled his own right hand. I think he's possessed." The friends quickly stepped forward to console the elderly couple, saying everything they could, good and bad, before they finally managed to calm them down somewhat. A few hours later, the light in the operating room went out. The doctor came out pushing Lucas, his voice full of relief. He was brought in just in time, and the surgery was successful. He'll be fine after a few months of recuperation. Hearing this, everyone present breathed a sigh of relief. Knowing there would be no lasting impact, Arthur and Eleanor Albright didn't want to see their wayward son and decided to fly abroad for a conference that very night. Before leaving, the two elders thanked each of the companions one by one, inviting them to visit their home next time. But when they reached Rosalie Atherton, they seemed not to see her, passing her by directly to thank the medical staff nearby. Watching their departing figures, Rosalie instantly understood everything. It turned out Lucas had never told his family that he had a girlfriend of 6 years. Well, for someone who was bound to break up when the time came, what was the point of an introduction? During these days in the hospital, Rosalie stayed in the ward, busy taking care of him, sleeping only 4 or 5 hours a day. Looking at her increasingly haggard face, Lucas showed a pained expression. "I'm fine now, go get some rest." Saying so, he forcibly pulled her down to sit and poured her a glass of water. He didn't explain what happened that day. It seemed he also felt he didn't know how to explain. After a pause, he casually asked a few questions. "Which friends have visited the hospital these days? I slept for too long, did I miss anyone? Has Sylvia Morgan been here?" Rosalie's hand, holding the glass, paused, and she looked at him steadily. She knew that in his entire sentence, only the last few words were what he truly cared about, so her answer was concise. "Everyone came. Sylvia Morgan was probably too scared and developed some psychological trauma, so she didn't come, I guess." Hearing this, Lucas frowned tightly, losing the mood for small talk. He picked up his phone and laboriously typed on the screen. Listening to the continuous notification sounds from his messaging app, Rosalie knew he was concerned about Sylvia again and silently got up to complete the discharge procedures. The car had just arrived at their apartment building, not yet upstairs, when Lucas received a call from Sylvia and turned to leave. Looking at the bandage wrapped around his hand, then at his hurried steps, the comforting words Rosalie was about to say stuck in her throat. She withdrew her gaze and turned back to the apartment. For the next 3 days, Lucas didn't return. As the day of her departure drew nearer, Rosalie's mood became calmer. After returning home, she planned to rest while looking for a job, so she had been browsing job postings in her hometown. The day before she left, her high school classmates said they were having a reunion. Since she had nothing else to do, she went to join in the fun. After many years, these old classmates had all changed a lot, and there were many sighs and exclamations when they met again. When Rosalie walked in, everyone couldn't believe that the stunningly beautiful woman before them was the same girl from 10 years ago who only knew how to study and was hopelessly plain, an invisible girl. Faced with everyone's shock, she appeared very calm and composed. After a few pleasantries, she sat down with a few old friends. Once most people had gathered, the class monitor was just about to get up and propose a toast. The door suddenly pushed open. Chapter 8. Lucas Albright walked in smiling and greeting everyone. When his eyes fell on Rosalie Atherton, he froze on the spot. "Rosalie, what are you doing here?" Everyone's expression looked as if they had been struck by lightning. "Of course she's here. We're all high school classmates from the same class." "No way, campus idol Luke, are you that forgetful? High school classmates? From the same class?" Those few words exploded like a bomb in Lucas's ears. He looked at Rosalie in shock, his lips slightly parted, his expression shifting rapidly. It was unclear whether he felt guilty for not remembering or confused as to why Rosalie hadn't told him. A few girls in the class sensed something was amiss and looked at the two of them with gossipy interest. "Rosalie, calling her so intimately, campus idol Luke, what's your relationship?" Before Rosalie could say just classmates, Lucas admitted it. "Rosalie is my girlfriend. We've been together for 6 years." Hearing this, the entire room erupted. Everyone started digging into their love story. Lucas hadn't expected her to be his classmate, and Rosalie hadn't expected him to openly admit their relationship. Both were surrounded by a crowd, bombarded with questions, and felt a bit overwhelmed. Lucas kept drinking to change the subject, while Rosalie found an opportunity to go to the restroom. After 3 drinks, the class monitor, a lightweight, grabbed Lucas's hand and babbled endlessly. "I'm so happy to see you two together. Rosalie has finally got her wish. You didn't know she liked you for a long time, did you? Once, during gym class, you were sleeping in the classroom, and I happened to go back to get something and saw her shielding you from the light. That's when I found out. Back then, the number of girls who liked you was countless, but Rosalie made the deepest impression on me. When you sprained your leg playing basketball, she did all your cleaning duties for you. When you got into a fight with some thugs and were cornered in an alley, she skipped class to get help and saved you. When a group of people from outside school were gossiping about you, she, as timid as she was, would rush out to defend you, arguing until her face was red. Ah, young love is so pure. To see you two, who are meant for each other, finally together, I'm truly happy for you. She's a good girl. You must cherish her, or you will definitely regret it." Hearing these things for the first time, Lucas felt his body suddenly stiffen. He had always thought they were just university acquaintances who met by chance, but he never expected Rosalie to be his high school classmate, and that she had secretly loved him for 10 whole years. Remembering how he had impulsively gotten together with her for 6 years because of a pact, while she was still in the dark, an inexplicable emotion surged in his heart, sour and bitter, making him flustered. He no longer had the courage to meet her gaze and could only drink glass after glass of wine in silence. After the reunion ended, Rosalie helped a drunk Lucas home. She brought a hot towel, wanting to wipe his face, but he held her hand tightly and wouldn't let go, his face full of distress. "Are you foolish? Why didn't you tell me?" Rosalie knew he must have heard something at the reunion, but she no longer cared. She pulled her hand away and said softly, "Liking you was my own business. It had nothing to do with you." Lucas, still somewhat conscious, heard this, and a wave of unspoken, uneasy emotions churned within him. He wanted to say something to her but didn't know where to start. In the end, it all came down to silence. The room quieted down. He raised his hand to shield his eyes from the glaring light, inadvertently revealing the tattoo on his waist. It was 3 English letters. XMY. Every night, when passion peaked, she would lie in his arms, see this tattoo, and always ask Lucas what it meant. He would pause, his gaze drifting downwards, his eyes filled with cherish and longing. Faith. A faith more important than my life. At that time, Rosalie didn't know these 3 letters stood for Sylvia Morgan and naively believed his words. She regarded his dream as her dream, his faith as her faith, and so she also got an identical tattoo. Looking back on these past events now, Rosalie no longer felt pain, only a sense of amusement. In the recklessness of youth, who hadn't hoped to connect with their beloved and grow old together. Only after hitting a wall and looking back, after crossing the hills and reflecting, did one realize that some fates were destined for separation from the moment they met. She and Lucas had reached a fork in the road. It was time to say goodbye. Chapter 9, the day after a hangover, the mind is always groggy. Lucas Albright struggled to get up and wash his face. Smelling the aroma coming from the living room, he walked over and found Rosalie Atherton had cooked a large table of food. He looked at the calendar and found it was just an ordinary day, which made him a little curious. "Why did you suddenly cook so many delicious dishes?" "To celebrate." Rosalie answered softly as she set out the bowls and chopsticks. Celebrate. Celebrate that his injury was almost healed. Lucas could only think of this one thing worth celebrating. But looking at the table full of spicy and flavorful dishes, he remembered the doctor's advice for a light diet and felt something wasn't quite right. But he didn't think too much about it. He pulled out a chair and had just sat down when his phone suddenly rang. It was Sylvia Morgan. After hesitating for a few seconds, he put down the chopsticks he had just picked up and answered the call. A few minutes later, the call ended. He slowly stood up and subconsciously glanced at Rosalie. She was already seated, peeling a shrimp, seemingly unconcerned whether he ate this meal or not. But thinking that she was celebrating for him, Lucas felt guilty and made an excuse. "Rosalie, I have something to do and need to go out for a bit. You eat first. I'll take you out to celebrate when I get back later." "No need. You go ahead and attend to your business." Rosalie shook her head, her eyes looking at him, as calm as a stagnant pool of water. For some reason, as soon as he met her gaze, his heartbeat inexplicably quickened, as if warning him that something was about to happen. But he couldn't figure out what it was. Across the table, the two looked at each other for a long time. Lucas finally turned and left. The moment the door closed, looking at the empty seat opposite her, Rosalie gave a nonchalant smile. What she wanted to celebrate was congratulating herself on regaining her freedom and learning to love herself. No other person needed to be involved. After finishing her meal, Rosalie cleaned up the kitchen waste and took the last few items downstairs to throw away. Then she took out the suitcase from the closet and left the apartment. Downstairs, she hailed a cab and went to the tattoo parlor they had visited before. The owner still remembered her and asked what she wanted to tattoo this time. She looked at the familiar little shop, her voice soft but with a hint of inexplicable determination. "No tattoo, I want to remove the last one." Looking at her expression, the owner seemed to understand something. A regretful look appeared on his face, and he still tried to persuade her a little. "Tattoo removal will be very painful, miss. Why don't you reconsider?" Painful? Rosalie had already experienced the most desperate, most unbearable pain in the world. How could she be afraid of such a little physical pain? She knew this mark, which carried her past, would fester, hurt, and scar when removed. But that was the necessary path for the wound to heal. She didn't explain further, sat in the seat she had sat in before, and lifted the clothes on her waist. A dense, burning pain spread through Rosalie's mind, and she couldn't control the physiological tears that streamed down her face. Tears mixed with sweat and slid down her smiling face. It felt like a century, or maybe just a few seconds, before the owner finished and handed her a tissue. Rosalie took it, wiped the watermarks from her face, bowed in thanks, and walked out of the small shop with her suitcase. She hailed a cab, took out her phone, sent Lucas a breakup message, and then deleted all contact methods related to him. After doing all this, the cab happened to stop at her destination. The scorching afternoon sun fell on Rosalie Atherton. She took out the high-speed rail ticket from her pocket and turned back for one last look at the city. Then, she resolutely walked into the station, never looking back. Chapter 10. Ever since he left the apartment, Lucas Albright had been on edge. All day, though he was physically in the noisy villa, his mind had wandered off somewhere. A few of his friends noticed his off-color expression, brought over a few bottles of beer, and stuffed one into his left hand. "Old Luke, this party is specially organized by us brothers to celebrate your recovery. Why are you, the main character, not interested? Is it that you only have eyes for Sylvia Morgan's surprise and don't care about our concern?" Looking at their winking and nudging, Lucas remembered the phone call and only then realized that 3 hours had passed. He fumbled for his phone in his pocket, intending to contact Rosalie Atherton, but found that his phone had somehow turned off. The battery was dead. No matter how he pressed the power button, it was useless. He had to toss the phone to someone nearby to charge. After patiently sitting for another 10 minutes, he couldn't bear it any longer and went to the balcony for some fresh air. The third floor offered an excellent view, clearly overlooking the surrounding few miles. With his excellent eyesight, Lucas could clearly see the sports car approaching from a distance. Amidst the green mountains, clear waters, and white buildings, there was only that single speck of red rapidly approaching. As he watched the car draw nearer, he unwrapped the gauze from his hand. Looking at the already scabbed black wound, he gently scratched its edge. This superficial action had no effect. Instead, the itch gradually spread. Lucas became increasingly irritable. As he tugged at the gauze, intending to rewrap it, his peripheral vision caught the car stopping downstairs. He stopped his actions and looked down. A man in his early 20s got out of the driver's seat and jogged to the passenger side to open the door. A few seconds later, Sylvia Morgan, in a primrose yellow dress, appeared in Lucas's line of sight. The moment he saw her, a flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. He was about to call out to her when the next scene stunned him. Sylvia proactively put her arms around the man's shoulders and gave him a kiss. Lucas felt all the blood in his body rush straight to his head, completely washing away what little rationality he had left. He clenched his fists tightly, turned, kicked open the balcony door, and climbed down the stairs directly. The group of friends, who were in the midst of enjoying themselves, were startled and asked him one after another what was wrong. He didn't explain, pushed aside the person blocking his way, and rushed out of the villa. His group of drunk friends saw his grim expression, and each grabbed a bottle of wine to follow him. When Lucas, leading a group of people, reached the entrance, the two, completely unaware, were still passionately kissing. Without thinking, he grabbed the man, raised his still unhealed right hand, and punched him in the face. Faced with this unprovoked attack, the man didn't back down, grabbing Lucas's collar and starting a brawl. The blood gushing from the reopened wound quickly stained both their clothes red. Yet Lucas seemed oblivious to the pain, fiercely determined to kill his opponent. The man was no pushover either. Seeing Lucas's injured hand, he directly attacked his most vulnerable spot. The friends who followed, upon seeing this scene, sobered up instantly, rolled up their sleeves, and joined the fray. 1 against 10, the man was no match and was soon overpowered and beat. Sylvia, watching from the side as they all struck ruthlessly, turned pale. She picked up the bouquet of roses from the back seat and smashed it over the head of Lucas, who was hitting the hardest. Sharp thorns scraped along his forehead down to his chin, drawing several 20-centimeter bloody lines. Droplets of blood oozed out, making his skin as white as paper, his eyes so red they looked like they would burst. That face, full of sinister resentment, looked towards her, slowly becoming numb and indifferent. Chapter 11. After the crowd dispersed, Sylvia Morgan dropped the battered flower stems in her hand and held the bruised and swollen man in her arms, her face full of heartache. "Julian, how are you? Say something, don't scare me." The group of people surrounding them saw her action, their faces changed, and they subconsciously looked at Lucas Albright. He tightly clenched his still bleeding hand, gritting his teeth as he watched this scene, his entire being enveloped in an atmosphere of extreme suppression. Sean Yates couldn't stand it and cursed it on the spot. "Sylvia Morgan, are you damn shameless? Old Luke obeys your every word and is devoted to you. Stringing him along is one thing, but now you're messing around with another man. What do you take old Luke for?" The person in her arms coughed a few times and weakly said he was fine. Only then did Sylvia slightly relax. She swallowed the choked sobs in her throat, looked up at Sean Yates, her eyes filled with a disgust and resentment they had never seen before. "I'm stringing him along. Isn't he the one who's been pestering me relentlessly for 10 years? Like a mangy dog I can't shake off. I've rejected him so many times. Can't you all see that I don't like him at all? It's my freedom who I want to be with. What right do you have to meddle so much?" A few words directly enraged several of the friends. If they didn't know Lucas liked her, they probably would have laid hands on her on the spot. Don't like him? If you don't like him, why did you accept those expensive gifts? If you don't like him, why did you make him do so many things for you? If you don't like him, why did you make some damn agreement? Sylvia Morgan, you are a thoroughly rotten, shameless woman. After being thoroughly berated, Sylvia showed no reaction, but the man who had been beaten unconscious became angry first, struggling to stand up. Sylvia quickly stopped him and then gently helped him into the car. Only then did she turn to face this group of people she had known for 10 years, a cold smile of mutual destruction on her face. "So what if I play Lucas Albright like a dog? Is he any good himself? Isn't he just toying with other people's emotions for his own selfish desires? Isn't Rosalie Atherton, who was deceived for 6 years, innocent? Aren't those ex-girlfriends he changed every 3 days innocent? It's just tit for tat. Before you call me shameless, have you ever thought that compared to this good brother you acknowledge, I'm 1,000 times kinder? You shut up everything he did, wasn't it for you? What right do you have to say that? Sylvia felt as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world and burst out laughing. Blaming me again? What, did I ask him to date over 100 girlfriends? Did I force him to pursue Rosalie Atherton? On one hand, he says he can't live without me, and on the other, he has endless romantic debts. I just saw through his philandering nature and feigned interest a bit, and he took it seriously. That's not obedience, that's stupidity, right? Lucas's face gradually darkened with each sentence. He stared deadly at Sylvia, feeling that the person before him was so unfamiliar, no longer overlapping with the laughing, playful person in his memory. The pain and despair hidden in those dark pupils slowly began to show. He had so much he wanted to say, so many things he wanted to question, so many emotions he wanted to vent. In the end, they all dissipated in her cold laughter. Something he had persisted in for 10 years, at this moment, collapsed like an anthill breaching a dam. Chapter 12. With his old injury flaring up, Lucas Albright was sent back to the operating room. Arthur and a leaner Albright, who had just finished their work, rushed over upon hearing the news. Learning from the doctor that his hand was completely crippled this time, they felt as if the sky was falling. He was their only son. They had hoped he would settle down and start a career soon, taking over the burden of the Albright Corporation. But these past years, he refused to gain experience in the corporation, nor did he engage in a serious relationship. He insisted on becoming a pilot, constantly making a fuss over a woman. Now, he had even crippled his own right hand, severing the future that could have been considered his only decent prospect. The two elders were overcome with anger and grief and were immediately rushed to the emergency room for rescue. After the surgery, Lucas was moved to the intensive care unit. When the anesthesia wore off, he opened his eyes. Looking at the haze before him, he subconsciously called out, "Rosalie." 1 second, 10 seconds, a minute, no answer. He thought she wasn't in the ward at the moment. Only when he heard footsteps at the door did he call out again. But the voice that answered him was unfamiliar. "Lucas Albright, the nerves in your right palm are severed. There's no possibility of recovery. You won't be able to lift any heavy objects in the future." A few words, and Lucas's heart sank to the bottom. He slowly raised his ray-bandaged hand, trying to control it, wanting to bring his knuckles together. But he couldn't exert any strength. Seeing his action, which only aggravated his injury, the nurse quickly stepped forward to stop him and earnestly cautioned him again. Every word fell clearly on Lucas's ears, yet it felt as if it came from outer space, carrying an unreal, illusory quality. He parted his pale, dry lips and asked in a daze, "Then, can I still fly a plane?" "Fly a plane? In your condition, even using a mobile phone is difficult. You should change careers sooner rather than later." The nurse muttered a few words under her breath and changed to a new medication. The light in Lucas's eyes slowly extinguished, and he slowly closed his eyes. Some temporarily forgotten memories flooded his mind like a tide. He remembered what happened before his hand was crippled. The sports car, the kiss, the brawl, the roses, and those harsh, yet heartfelt truths. Watching those constantly flashing images, a smile spread across his lips, filled with endless self-mockery and boundless desolation. During these few days in the intensive care unit, Lucas didn't say another word. He just silently watched the slowly burgeoning greenery outside the window, rarely even blinking. Only when someone pushed open the door would he turn his head at the sound. Upon discovering it wasn't Rosalie Atherton, he would withdraw his gaze and continue to stare blankly. His friends had never seen him so listless and dejected. Afraid to provoke him, they could only sit beside him in silence. After being moved to a regular ward, he looked at the gathered family and friends, but still didn't see that familiar figure among them. Only then did he frown and ask, "Rosalie?" Chapter 13. Hearing his low, hoarse voice, the friends first showed joy, then froze, looking at each other. That's right, such a big thing had happened to old Luke, and several days had passed. Why hadn't they seen Rosalie Atherton? Given her personality, shouldn't she have rushed to the hospital to watch over him day and night? Sean Yates scratched his head, his tone uncertain. She probably doesn't know about this yet. Doesn't know. It's better if she doesn't know. Looking at the dripping IV bottle, Lucas Albright let out a sigh of relief. Seeing his expression gradually soften, the friends thought he had come to terms with it and gathered around, chattering incessantly. Old Luke, we found out the guy Sylvia Morgan was with that day is her new boyfriend, the third son of the Grove family from Yungang. They met when they were studying abroad and just confirmed their relationship a couple of days ago. The surprise Sylvia mentioned yesterday was that she planned to bring him to publicly humiliate you, the Grove family. No wonder he could afford a global limited edition sports car. Lucas pondered, not saying anything. The friends, feeling uninhibited, became more excited as they spoke. We can't touch Julian Grove, but we can settle scores with Sylvia Morgan. She played Old Luke for so many years, and now that she's latched onto a new wealthy connection, she's ungrateful and bites us back. I think she doesn't know her own worth. Right, Old Luke, as long as you say the word, we promise to find a way to deal with her. Doesn't she like to snag rich guys? Let's expose what she's done all these years and see who still wants her. Faced with their various suggestions for revenge, Lucas remained silent. Gradually, everyone seemed to sense something. They stopped smiling and cautiously probed. Old Luke, you haven't gone soft, have you? She's shown her true colors, why bother? Yeah, she just has a pretty face, but her heart is actually very black. Bro, don't be foolish. Choosing her is worse than choosing Rosalie Atherton. What do you mean, worse than? I think Rosalie is great. She's been by Old Luke's side all these years, never caused any trouble, and even helped clean up a lot of messes. She's ambitious too, way better than Sylvia Morgan by a long shot. Hearing the name Rosalie Atherton, Lucas's ice-cold face finally thawed. He looked around, his voice deep, with unprecedented determination. Don't mention her name in front of me anymore, and don't go looking to settle any scores with her. Just make a clean break, that's all. But from beginning to end, she never explicitly agreed to be with me. It was just my wishful thinking, my self-righteousness. At this point, Lucas had to admit this fact. The room fell silent at once. Looking at their reluctant expressions, Lucas's eyes flickered and his tone softened. My girlfriend is Rosalie Atherton. It was her before, it's her now, and in the future, it will only be her. After finishing his IV drip for the day, Lucas got up and went to the next ward to see his parents, who were still recuperating. The two elders were still angry with him. Seeing him come in, they both looked away. Lucas knew he had failed his parents' expectations and that his 10 years of wrongdoings had broken their hearts. He knelt on the spot to admit his mistake. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong all these years. I shouldn't have disregarded the Albright family, acted willfully, and made you worry so much for me. I understand now. I won't disobey you anymore, and I will listen to your words and return to the corporation, taking up the responsibilities I should have shouldered. Hearing this, Eleanor Albright's expression softened slightly. Arthur Albright was still fuming, didn't even look at him, and pretended not to hear. Lucas didn't hesitate, kowtowing heavily on the cold floor. Thud after thud echoed continuously in the ward. Only when his forehead was scraped raw did Arthur frown and tell him to stop. All right, get up. It's already a blessing from heaven that you've come to your senses. Once you've recovered from your injuries, get your ass to the company and report for duty. Lucas, however, didn't get up as told. He knelt upright on the floor, looking at them with a resolute expression. Can it be postponed for 2 months? I want to get married first. Hearing these 2 words, Arthur picked up the teacup from the table and threw it at his face, his entire face flushed red with anger. Married? Who do you plan to marry? Sylvia Morgan? Lucas Albright, have you lost your mind? She caused you to lose your hand, and you still want to marry her. Are you trying to anger your mother and me to death? The teacup flew past Lucas's ear and shattered. Scalding tea splashed on his injured hand, soaking the freshly changed gauze. He had no time to worry about this, looking at his angry parents and explaining, Not her, it's my girlfriend, we've been together for 6 years, I want to marry her. 6 years? How come they hadn't heard a peep? The 2 elders exchanged a look, both seeing disbelief in each other's eyes. In the end, it was Eleanor who played the good cop, asking a few questions in a gentle tone. You've been together for so long, why didn't you bring her home for us to see? Which family's daughter is she? The expression on Lucas's face faltered for a few seconds, then quickly returned to normal. He thought carefully before formulating a more suitable answer. She's not from a wealthy family, her family background is ordinary. I was afraid you wouldn't approve, so I kept it a secret. These few words made Arthur blow his top again. Just as he was about to explode, Eleanor quickly stopped him. Since you knew we wouldn't approve, why did you bring up marriage? Chapter 14, Why Indeed? Lucas Albright hadn't really thought it through himself. It was just a spur-of-the-moment suggestion. But to convince his traditional parents to agree, he needed a very, very good reason. He lowered his eyes, recalling every moment he had spent with Rosalie Atherton. He thought their first meeting was at a bar outside the university, but in fact, they had crossed paths countless times 4 years prior. He thought she had fallen for him at first sight, captivated by his looks, but her love for him had long taken root, flourishing like a dense tree. He thought they would eventually part ways, but after 6 years of twists and turns, he had grown accustomed to her presence by his side. In the heavy snow, the hand she carefully extended to hold his. At graduation, the warm embrace when she stood on tiptoe to hug him. After they moved in together, the daily good morning and good night greetings. Scene after scene flashed through his mind, finally settling on her 25th birthday, the moment she made a wish. She said she hoped to get married smoothly this year. To this day, Lucas still didn't know if she was telling the truth or not. If it was the truth, then let's get married. If Rosalie Atherton was the one to spend the rest of his life with him, he was willing, without any regrets. If it was a lie, then let's make it the truth. Anyway, he had already decided on her. In this lifetime, he wouldn't want to marry anyone else. So, he no longer hesitated and poured out all the words from the bottom of his heart to Arthur and Eleanor Albright. Dad, Mom, my girlfriend's name is Rosalie Atherton. She was my high school classmate, but I only truly remembered her name in our sophomore year of university. Before that, I had no idea such a classmate existed, nor did I know she had a crush on me for many years. And our first real meeting, when I approached her, was only because I lost a game and was dared to ask her to be my girlfriend. I never thought she would agree, and just like that, by a strange twist of fate, we became a couple. After we got together, I found she could always notice my oversights and gently, thoughtfully fix things for me. At that time, I thought she was just very meticulous. I never imagined it was a habit she developed over long years of secret admiration. I took her kindness for granted, without giving anything in return, even focusing all my attention on someone else, yet she never once blamed me. Like her, I too have loved someone deeply and unforgettably. It's just that I've let go now, while she's still holding on. Looking at her is like seeing my former self. There won't be another person in the world who can empathize with me like she does, nor will there be another person who makes my heart ache like this. So I want to make up for the happiness I owe her, and also give myself a chance to start over. Towards the end, Lucas's voice carried a sense of relief and a smile. Arthur and Eleanor also fell silent. They were experienced people. They knew that although their son was willful, this time he was seriously hurt, and they didn't want to rub salt in his wounds. They looked at each other, both seeing pain and helplessness in the other's eyes, yet not knowing what to say. Lucas knew their concerns. He bent down again and kowtowed heavily 3 times. Just let me be willful one more time, Dad, Mom. I promise this is the last time. Looking at the long gashes on his face and his bandaged right hand, the 2 elders sighed deeply. Ultimately, they compromised. Bring her home for us to see. Chapter 15, having achieved a satisfactory result, Lucas Albright didn't disturb his parents any longer and returned to his ward. He picked up the phone that had been lying untouched on the table for days and pressed the power button. The 10-odd seconds of startup time felt incredibly long at this moment. Lucas was eager to share the news with Rosalie Atherton. His left hand, entering the password, was trembling slightly. The network was still loading. He first opened the dial pad and entered her number to call. Beep, 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 beep. The long, drawn-out ringing tones tormented him, finally followed by a cold, mechanical female voice. Hello, the number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later. Unable to connect. Was she in an elevator with no signal? That shouldn't be right. Countless thoughts flashed through Lucas's mind. He placed the phone back on the table, opened his messaging app, and tried to contact her another way. As soon as he opened it, dense red dots dominated his vision. Message after message, all inquiries sent after they learned he was injured, made his head ache. He scrolled down more than a dozen messages without finding Rosalie, so he directly opened his contacts and searched. A few seconds later, her name appeared in the center of the screen. Lucas tapped on it, contemplating whether to type or send a voice message, when he saw a few words in the white dialogue box at the bottom. Lucas Albright, let's break up. The time was March 29th, 3:47 p.m., 5 days ago. Lucas's mind, which had just been racing, suddenly crashed. He stared intently at the sentence, looked at the date again, and finally shifted his gaze to the contact name at the top. Rosalie, along with a do not disturb icon. It was indeed the contact name he had personally set, and it was Rosalie Atherton's actual account. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. If it was Rosalie, how could she break up with him for no reason? Was she angry, or was it a prank? Lucas's heart pounded violently, yet he desperately tried to find excuses to absolve her. He opened the keyboard, wanting to send a message asking if it was a penalty for losing a game, but his left hand wouldn't obey, constantly making typos. He could only switch to voice mode and send a voice message. Rosalie, I was injured and in the hospital a few days ago, so I couldn't contact you. Are you angry? After he released his finger, his phone chimed twice. He thought she had replied instantly again and quickly picked up his phone to see her response, only to see a red exclamation mark and a notification that they were no longer friends. The sound just now was the notification for a failed message. Looking at this tiny yet glaring red mark, the expression on Lucas's face slowly froze. He bent down and frantically typed countless messages on the keyboard, sending them. Countless message failed to send, tones filled the ward. Lucas, unwilling to give up, clicked on her social media profile, only to find he didn't have permission to view it. Mutual follows on TikTok, Instagram, their messaging app contacts, payment app friends, all social media channels to contact Rosalie Atherton had been blocked and deleted. Looking at the unsent messages, Lucas stood stunned, memories flashing rapidly through his mind. During his days in the hospital, Rosalie hadn't cared where he had gone, as she used to, nor had she come to see him. Their last meeting was the morning of the incident. She had cooked a table full of food, saying she wanted to celebrate for him, but she hadn't kept him, the guest of honor. After that birthday party, he had stayed home for a few days and noticed many things missing, almost all of which she had bought. Tracing back further, she had resigned without a word, and one night, she had burned many things. Lucas's memory of this particular event was hazy. But his intuition told him that those vague memories were very important. What exactly had she burned? Ashes of paper, letter paper, love letters, the love letters she had written to him. Only at this moment did Lucas finally realize that Rosalie wasn't joking. She had seriously and proactively proposed breaking up, and it was premeditated. Chapter 16, Lucas Albright ignored the doctor's advice and immediately left the hospital to return home. Seeing the once cozy apartment now empty and desolate, the panic that had enveloped his heart slowly spread throughout his body. The living room, bedroom, study, nothing related to Rosalie Atherton remained. She had completely vanished from his life. Lucas felt like a ship lost at sea in the dead of night, bewildered and helpless. He had his friends try to contact Rosalie, only to find she had deleted everyone connected to him, leaving no one behind. She was determined to draw a clear line with him. This resolute attitude completely threw Lucas into disarray. He could no longer control his rationality. Dragging his still unhealed hand, he scoured Northbridge. The park they once visited, the alleyways she had praised as beautiful, the yoga studio she frequented, Rosalie was nowhere to be found. For a day and a night, Lucas didn't rest for a moment. When dawn broke again, he clung to the last sliver of hope and went to her former company. Finally, from her ex-colleague's mouth, he learned her whereabouts. Rosalie seems to have gone back to her hometown. Hometown, Riverbend? Without a second thought, Lucas booked the earliest flight to Riverbend. Sean Yates, seeing him in such a hurry, tried to persuade him. Old Luke, your injury hasn't healed yet. There's no need to chase after her right now, is there? Since we know where she is, you can go after you've recovered. It'll be the same. Lucas knew Sean meant well, but he couldn't wait another moment. No one understood better than him that when a person's heart completely dies and they decide to let go, it's after an accumulation of countless disappointments. He had already wasted 5 days. If he delayed any longer, the chances of reconciliation would be minuscule. So, disregarding everyone's advice, he boarded the plane. After landing in Riverbend, his secretary sent over the address they had found. Lucas, with Sean, rushed over directly. They knocked several times, but no one answered. It seemed she wasn't home. The two waited at the entrance of the residential complex from noon until dusk when they finally saw Rosalie. She got out of a black sedan. As she looked up and saw them, she froze for a moment, her brow furrowing slightly. The moment their eyes met, Lucas eagerly stood up, wanting to approach and greet her. But after taking a few steps, he stopped, because Rosalie had turned sideways and was talking to another person. It was a man in his mid-20s, wearing a well-tailored trench coat and gold-rimmed glasses, looking very refined. Because they weren't far apart, Lucas could clearly hear their conversation. "Mr. Lindsay, thank you for your hospitality today. I had a very pleasant day. Perhaps I can treat you to tea next time? Then it's settled. I'll wait for Miss Atherton's call. See you then." "See you then." After a polite farewell, Rosalie watched Ethan Lindsay's car drive out of sight before turning to go home. She looked straight ahead at the osmanthus tree in the distance, her expression faint, unreadable. As she passed Lucas, she didn't stop, seemingly having no intention of interacting with him. Watching her brush past him without even a glance, Lucas finally couldn't hold back. He raised his left hand and grasped her wrist, his voice low, tinged with an indescribable sense of loss. "Rosalie, who is that man who just dropped you off?" Rosalie lowered her eyes to her captured wrist and with a slight effort shook off his hand. A matchmaking prospect. Chapter 17. Sean Yates, standing nearby, heard this and instantly jumped up, his face filled with disbelief. "You just broke up with old Luke a few days ago and you're already preparing for matchmaking. You!" Rosalie Atherton took 2 steps back, distancing herself from Lucas Albright, then glanced at Sean, her voice faint. "We've already broken up. Whether I go on matchmaking dates or not seems to have nothing to do with you, right?" Lucas stared blankly at his empty hand, his throat moving a few times. He turned to look at her, his eyes welling with a certain sorrow. "You want to get married? Shouldn't the person you marry be me?" A very faint smile appeared on Rosalie's face, her tone light and cheerful. "Sorry, I'm not the type to go back to an ex." One sentence and Lucas's expression changed. Sean also hadn't expected to hear these words from her and immediately spoke up for his friend. "Old Luke didn't do anything wrong. Why did you break up with him for no reason, and now you're immediately moving on to matchmaking? Haven't you liked old Luke for many years? Why are you doing something so incomprehensible? For no reason, immediately moving on, incomprehensible." Such selfish and self-centered words. Rosalie didn't want to argue with them about right and wrong, who was to blame. It was meaningless, so she only answered with one sentence. "I don't like him anymore, so we broke up. Isn't that allowed?" After speaking, she didn't look at their expressions and walked towards the residential complex. Seeing her so heartless, Sean couldn't hold back any longer and shouted across the 3-meter distance. "Rosalie Atherton, do you know old Luke's right hand is crippled? Don't you feel any pain for him at all?" Is this an attempt at emotional blackmail, now resorting to a sob story? But Rosalie wasn't falling for it. She didn't turn back, just raised her voice. "Wasn't that his own choice? It has nothing to do with me, his ex-girlfriend, right?" The spring sunset shone on Rosalie, warm and comforting. She looked at the tender green shoots sprouting on the branches, thought of the gradually healing wound on her waist, and a sense of joy slowly rose in her eyes. The cold winter was over. The spring she had longed for had finally arrived. As soon as she pushed open the door, Rosalie smelled the aroma of braised pork ribs. She put down her bag, changed her shoes, and ran into the kitchen. While washing her hands, she eyed the pot, her mouth watering. "Just got home. Time to eat, Mom. I'm going to eat 3 bowls of rice tonight." David Atherton, who was serving the dishes, looked at her alone, somewhat surprised. "Didn't I ask you to invite Ethan home for dinner? Where is he?" "He said he didn't prepare anything today and felt embarrassed to intrude. He'll come next time with a proper gift." Rosalie wiped the water from her hands, took out bowls and chopsticks from the cabinet, and answered casually. Emily Atherton untied her apron, followed her husband and daughter out, and pulled out a chair. "This boy, he's really too polite. You should have told me earlier, and I wouldn't have cooked so much. Isn't this a waste?" Rosalie picked up a piece of pork rib, blowing on it, and waved her hand. "Not a waste. I can finish all of this myself." "That's true. You've always eaten a lot since you were little. It was only after you went to your aunt's house that you started being picky. Look at you now, so thin, hardly any flesh on your face, and your arms are like bamboo sticks." Emily complained while adding a few more pieces of meat to her bowl. David wasn't to be outdone, adding a large chopstickful of green vegetables, calling it a balanced diet. Looking at the bowl piled high, almost overflowing, and the table full of steaming hot dishes, a trace of guilt inexplicably rose in Rosalie's heart. Her father was from Northbridge and married her mother, who was born in Riverbend. She was their only daughter. When she was 16, the doctor advised her mother, who couldn't adapt to the northern climate, to return to her hometown to recuperate. So, her father took his wife back to Riverbend, letting Rosalie board at her aunt's house to finish high school and then apply to a university back in Riverbend. But because she had fallen in love with Lucas Albright, she didn't listen to her parents and applied to Aviation University, staying in Northbridge after graduation. Thus, she and her parents had lived apart for 9 years, only now reunited. Looking at the graying hair at their temples and their increasingly wrinkled faces, Rosalie's nose tingled, and she almost shed tears. She quickly lowered her head, hiding the emotion in her eyes, and showed a radiant smile. "Yes, I love Mom's cooking the most. I want to eat it for a lifetime. If you like Mom's cooking, I'll make it for you every day." Chapter 18. After dinner, it was exactly 6 o'clock. Emily Atherton was drinking tea on the sofa, while father and daughter were in the kitchen washing dishes and cleaning up. David Atherton, wiping grease stains from the counter, glanced at his daughter and hesitated before speaking. "Rosalie, your Uncle Lindsay asked me to ask you, what do you think of Ethan?" Rosalie's hand, rinsing a plate, paused for a second. She squinted, thinking carefully. Ethan Lindsay, recalling their reserved and polite demeanor during their first meeting 4 days ago, and then thinking about how they could already reminisce about the past during their interactions these past 2 days. It should be considered rapid progress, right? She slowly nodded, her tone also carrying a hint of uncertainty. "He's very nice. Uncle Lindsay, why do you ask?" "Why? Of course, he likes you, silly girl, and wants you to be his daughter-in-law. He was hoping you'd come back even when you were still in Northbridge. When he heard we were going to arrange matchmaking for you, he immediately brought Ethan over, asking us to consider his son first. Your mother and I saw he's a fine young man, well-spoken and polite, and the right age. We think he's good. We're not insisting you get married this year, we just want you to get to know each other first, see if you click. Don't feel too much pressure. If it works out, great. If not, just be friends." Rosalie could understand her parents' earnest efforts for her and didn't want them to worry too much, so she shared some of her thoughts honestly. "I know, he's indeed very good, and I feel very comfortable and at ease when I'm with him. It's just that relationships can't be rushed. He and I both need some time to confirm if we're suitable for each other. So don't worry so much. Just relax, drink tea, play chess, and accompany Mom to her square dancing." Having said what needed to be said, David knew his daughter had always been independent and didn't nag any further. He patted her shoulder and went downstairs with Emily for an after-dinner stroll. After putting the plates away in the cupboard, Rosalie returned to her bedroom. As soon as she picked up her phone, she saw a verification message in the notification bar. It was Lucas Albright. She ignored it, walked to the window intending to close it, and immediately saw the 2 people waiting downstairs. They were too far away for her to see their expressions. But recalling what happened when she returned, her good mood, like a drop of ink in water, was no longer so pure. She drew the curtains, removed her makeup, and took a hot shower, finally washing away that bit of unpleasantness. Lying in the soft quilt, Rosalie slowly grew sleepy and dozed off. When she woke up again, the lights in the room had been turned off by her parents, who had returned at some point. The room was pitch black. She fumbled for her phone and turned it on, only to find it was already 11 o'clock. The room felt a bit stuffy. She yawned, got up, and opened the window a little, only to discover that Lucas and Sean Yates were still waiting downstairs. In this relationship, Rosalie considered herself to have acted with propriety from beginning to end, not wronging anyone. She had a clear conscience. What she wanted to say, she had already said this afternoon. She didn't want to have any further involvement with these people and simply pretended not to see them, lying back down on the bed. As soon as she opened her messaging app, she noticed Ethan Lindsay had sent a "safely home" message 4 hours ago. Out of politeness, she still explained. I got sleepy after dinner and didn't see the message. Could you please send my regards to your aunt and uncle for me tomorrow? A few seconds later, a new message popped up. I'll pass on your good wishes. But now that you're awake, you won't have insomnia tonight, will you? Insomnia was definitely going to happen, but Rosalie had already figured out how to pass the time. She took out the book she had bought at the bookstore yesterday and sent a photo of it. The little tips on growing flowers you mentioned the other day were very interesting. I was thinking of buying a few succulents for the house, so I bought a book to learn. It should help pass the time. Succulents. Are you planning to buy them online or offline? Offline, I think. I plan to go to the flower market the day after tomorrow to take a look. Rosalie typed her reply and had just sent it when the other side replied instantly, as if they had already prepared a response. The day after tomorrow is Saturday. Would you like me to accompany you? We can have tea together in the afternoon. With a university biology teacher accompanying her, Rosalie felt she probably wouldn't make any mistakes and agreed. Okay. Chapter 19, Rosalie Atherton stayed up until 3 in the morning before feeling sleepy. The next day at 10, the alarm she had set beforehand woke her. She groggily got out of bed and found her parents had already gone to work, with breakfast still warm in the kitchen. After washing up, Rosalie ate while looking over the details for her 2 interviews that afternoon. One at 2, the other at 4:30, both within a half-hour journey from home. After checking the routes, she returned to her room, tidied up, and began to prepare. At 1 in the afternoon, she went downstairs with her bag, only to find those 2 still waiting below, seemingly not having slept all night. As soon as he saw her, Lucas Albright immediately stood up and blocked her path, his voice full of exhaustion and pleading. Rosalie, can we talk, please? Rosalie glanced at the time, her tone very calm. Sorry, I have something to do, I don't have time. After being rejected again, Lucas froze on the spot. Seeing he wasn't moving, Rosalie couldn't be bothered to say more, squeezed through the narrow passage on the left and quickened her pace towards the community gate. Because she used some force, she bumped into Lucas's injured hand. The newly formed scab tore open again, and the seeping blood slowly stained the gauze red. But he seemed oblivious to the pain, staring unblinkingly at the gradually receding figure, his eyes filled with endless sorrow. Sean Yates, so tired he was about to pass out, saw his wound and woke up instantly, frantically taking out medicine from his pocket. Old Luke, your wound has opened up again quick. Let's go to the hospital and get it checked. Lucas paid no heed, brushing away Sean's hand that was about to undo the bandage and quickly chased after Rosalie. Seeing his unyielding demeanor, Sean sighed to the heavens about the misfortune and had no choice but to follow. The first interview ended at 3:30. As Rosalie came downstairs about to hail a cab, she saw Lucas, who had followed her at some point. He stood by the flower bed, staring straight at her, his eyes filled with stubbornness. Sean, anxiously pacing beside him, saw her come down and quickly blocked her path. My dear lady, you're finally done and down, you have time now, right? For Auld Lang Syne, his hand is injured like this, please, have some compassion and persuade him to go to the hospital. I'm begging you. Rosalie listened, casually glancing at Lucas's hand. After seeing the dark red patch, her gaze lingered for a few seconds, then quickly returned to normal. Excuse me, I have another interview. Please make way. Hearing this, Sean's long-suppressed resentment finally erupted. Rosalie Atherton, whatever resentment you have in your heart, can you just vent it on me? Old Luke flew to Riverbend for you with such a serious injury, he hasn't closed his eyes for almost 3 days. Can you please stop being angry with him? You've been together for 6 years, what can't you say openly? For her, hearing these 2 words, Rosalie inexplicably wanted to laugh. She slightly lowered her head, looking at the shadow beneath her voice extremely cold. I believe that parting amicably is a principle that must be observed in a relationship. Lucas Albright, don't you think so? Meeting that cold gaze, Lucas felt as if a knife had stabbed his heart, a sharp pain. He clenched his fists tightly, pursed his lips, forcibly suppressing those unwilling, painful emotions, his tone stiff and repressed. Sean Yates, move aside. Sean hadn't expected them to reach this point. But Lucas had spoken, so he could only reluctantly make way. Rosalie didn't hesitate for a second, stepped down the stairs, hailed a taxi, and sped away. Watching the car drive off, Lucas felt a void in his heart. Endless desolation and disappointment surged up, completely engulfing him. He couldn't hold back any longer and slammed his fist onto the flower bed. Profuse blood dripped from between his fingers. Drip, drip. Chapter 20. After the second interview ended, Rosalie Atherton didn't see those two people downstairs and breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at the setting sun in the west, hesitating whether to eat out or go home when her phone chimed. Interview over? How did it go? It was Ethan Lindsay. Recalling the rather pleasant exchange, Rosalie felt it was pretty much in the bag and replied with a cute little puppy emoji giving an okay sign. Soon, a message came back. Since it went so well, let's celebrate. Let me treat you to dinner. Rosalie subconsciously wanted to refuse. But then she remembered that he had helped her get the referral for the second interview, and she felt it wasn't right. She deleted the "it's too much trouble" and changed it to "I should treat you," then sent it. Then I'll gladly accept. Where are you? I can come pick you up. Send me the address and wait a bit, help me think about what to eat tonight. After sending the address, Rosalie opened a restaurant review app and started searching for restaurants. She wasn't familiar with Riverbend, having only visited a few places with relatives during holidays, so she didn't know what to eat for a moment. After looking for 20 minutes, she finally decided to play it safe and try a Western restaurant. Just as she had made a reservation, Ethan messaged that he had arrived. She saw it and immediately got into the car. After fastening her seatbelt, she told him the restaurant she had booked. Ethan didn't rush to drive but took a small cake from the back seat, handed it to her, a gentle smile on his face. Didn't you say last time you had cake from this place before and liked it very much? I happened to pass by the shop and bought one for you. Try it and see if it still tastes the same. Rosalie hadn't expected him to remember something she had said so casually. She was pleasantly surprised and thanked him repeatedly. Although she hadn't eaten for a long time and her stomach was a bit hungry, she remembered that Ethan seemed to be a bit of a neat freak. So she didn't open the box but placed the cake on her lap, planning to eat it when they reached the restaurant. Seeing she made no move, a hint of surprise appeared in Ethan's eyes and he spoke gently. You've had 2 interviews and didn't eat lunch. Aren't you hungry? Eat something to tide you over first, or you'll get stomach problems. Before he could finish, Rosalie felt a slight pain in her stomach. She did indeed have some gastritis. Not wanting to go to the hospital and have her parents find out, she didn't stand on ceremony any longer and opened the box. The sweet cream melted in her mouth, slowly suppressing the discomfort. She carefully finished the cake and then smiled as she chatted with Ethan about the taste. It's still the same taste as before, very delicious. If you like it, I'll bring it for you often in the future. It was a very ordinary sentence, but Rosalie heard a different meaning in it. Her ears turned red instantly. Just as she was about to say she was sorry to trouble him, they arrived at their destination. The car stopped. She opened the car door, got out, looked at the huge sign, and found their table number. Number 98, they're at 96 now. It'll be our turn soon. Ethan nodded, turning his head as if to say something, but then he saw a little cream on the corner of her lip. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket, hesitated for a dozen seconds, and finally handed it to her. There's a little cream on your face, wipe it off. The redness on Rosalie's ears instantly spread to her face, a flash of embarrassment in her eyes. She took the handkerchief, and just as she was about to open her phone camera, Ethan had already held his phone up in front of her. She froze for a moment, then quickly understood his kindness, hurriedly wiped the cream clean, and said thank you again. Ethan didn't make a big deal out of this small matter, extended his hand towards her, and smiled elegantly. Give me the handkerchief, I'll clean it. Rosalie was initially a bit embarrassed, but thinking of his neatness, she still folded the handkerchief neatly and handed it back. Calling customer number 98 to the 3rd floor for dining. Hearing the announcement, Rosalie quickly put these little interludes out of her mind, waving at him as she went upstairs. It's our turn, looking at the beaming smile on her face. Ethan touched the soft silk handkerchief in his palm and followed her up. Chapter 21, at 8 in the evening, the sky was overcast with dark clouds, and the air was thick with a dusty, gritty feeling, as if it were about to rain. Sean Yates, sporting heavy dark circles under his eyes, checked the weather forecast and spoke weakly. Old Luke, the doctor said this afternoon that you need to rest. It's going to rain tonight. Just come back to the hotel with me, okay? You can come find Rosalie Atherton tomorrow. Lucas Albright's eyes remained fixed on the doorway. He answered in a hoarse voice. If you're tired, go rest. Don't worry about me. I know my limits. This is called knowing your limits? Sean complained endlessly. Knowing he couldn't persuade him, he resignedly went to a nearby store to buy some food and rain gear. He had just gone in when Lucas saw the familiar sedan appear in his line of sight. Remembering the man he had seen that day, his nerves tensed, and his whole body exuded a strong sense of aggression. Sure enough, a moment later, Rosalie got out of the car. Seeing the smile on her lips, 100 times brighter than yesterday's, Lucas felt as if his heart was blocked, unable to breathe. The painful emotions suppressed for days were on the verge of collapse, and the blows came one after another. David and Emily Atherton, who happened to be returning from a walk, saw the two and smilingly greeted them. The four of them stood together, talking and laughing. An uninformed observer might have thought they were a family of four. David patted Ethan Lindsay's shoulder, his tone full of admiration. Ethan, I heard from your father that you're very good at chess. When you have time, come over to my place, and we can have a few games, Uncle and you. Since Uncle has invited, how about tomorrow evening? I'm going to the flower market with Miss Atherton during the day. I'll bring her back in the evening, and can play chess with Uncle then. Hearing that they were going to meet again tomorrow, both elders beamed with joy and repeatedly agreed. Emily clapped her hands and smiled at Ethan. You've known each other for so long, don't call her Miss Atherton. It's too formal. We all call her Rosalie, you should too. Ethan's eyes lit up, but he didn't change the form of address presumptuously. Instead, he looked at Rosalie as if seeking her opinion. Rosalie was already feeling embarrassed by her parents' overly familiar nature. Feeling his questioning gaze, she quickly put on a proper and polite smile. Yes, just call me Rosalie. Then, should I also change how I address you? What would be better? My family all call me Ethan. If you don't mind, you can call me that. Switching from a polite form of address to such an intimate nickname, Rosalie truly felt a bit unaccustomed. But under her parents' expectant gazes, she could only brace herself and say it. Okay, then from now on, Ethan it is. Seeing this harmonious scene, Lucas Albright gritted his teeth in anger, wishing he could rush out immediately and declare his identity. But he still had a shred of sanity left. He knew that appearing now would only leave an irredeemably bad impression on Mr. and Mrs. Atherton. Not to mention, he and Rosalie were currently in a cold war after their breakup. What use was the identity of an ex-boyfriend? He could only forcibly suppress the unwilling and jealous emotions in his heart, standing in the shadows and watching everything. After another 10 minutes of pleasantries, the two groups finally said goodbye. Rosalie linked arms with her mother and slowly walked home. David took the bag from his daughter's hand and asked about her interviews that day. How were the interviews? Do you need to work overtime? You should have normal days off on weekends, right? If it's too demanding, don't go. Your mother and I just hope you can stay healthy and be with us. There's no need to wear yourself out just to earn some money. Rosalie was about to speak when her peripheral vision caught the person standing under the tree, and she frowned. Why is he still here? Chapter 22, Rosalie Atherton didn't want to be endlessly entangled with Lucas Albright. The thought of making things clear with him slowly formed in her mind. She found an excuse for her parents to go back first. Then, under the gaze of that intense stare, she proactively walked up to him and spoke first. Whatever you want to say, make it clear now. I'll give you 10 minutes. After you're done, go back. Don't appear in front of me again. Hearing the first sentence, Lucas thought he had grasped a sliver of hope. After hearing the next sentence, he realized he hadn't grasped hope, but a straw as thin as a hair. But no matter what it was, he just wanted to grab onto it now and never let go. So he didn't waste a second, saying everything he had been thinking for a long time. Rosalie, on your birthday, didn't you say you wanted to get married? I know you were saying it for me to hear. I just needed some time to think it over properly. Now I've thought it through. I want to marry you. Are you willing to give me another chance to build a family with me? These were words Rosalie had once dreamed of hearing. Before knowing the truth, she had countless times fantasized about Lucas proposing, thought about what style of wedding dress they would choose, and imagined what their married life would be like. But all of this was a long, long time ago. Even hearing the words, marry you, directly from Lucas's lips, Rosalie felt no ripple in her heart. She looked up at the light that suddenly switched on in the sixth-floor apartment, a gentle smile on her face. She understood more clearly than ever that her home was not in a tomorrow that would never come, nor in distant Northbridge. It was where her eyes could see, in her hands. So she shook her head and answered him in an incredibly sincere tone. "I'm not willing, and I don't want to marry you, Lucas Albright. You have someone you like, you have a family background that I can't even aspire to. We are not from the same world. I have completely let go of my 8-year obsession. You should let me go too." Every word fell on Lucas's ears, plunging his fluctuating heart completely into an abyss. He never imagined that Rosalie already knew he liked Sylvia Morgan. He instantly lost his composure and hurriedly explained, "No, that's not it, Rosalie. I did like Sylvia Morgan before, but that's all in the past. I've let her go now. I just want to be with you. It was my fault for hiding it from you before. I apologize to you. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me this once, please?" Rosalie didn't need this apology. She had loved the wrong person, been deceived. She willingly admitted her mistake. But this didn't mean she would wallow in the past. She could pick herself up, and she could let go. She wouldn't linger for someone unworthy after knowing the truth. Since she had already walked out of the bewildering mountains that had trapped her for 8 years, she wouldn't look back. She had a firm and fearless heart, so she wouldn't be moved by his meaningless words. She looked at him, a relaxed and relieved expression on her face. "You've let go of Sylvia Morgan, so you should be able to empathize with the feeling of a dead heart, right? Since you wouldn't repeat your mistakes, why must you insist I give you another chance? Lucas Albright, I'm not a backup patiently waiting for you to come back, nor am I your fallback for unrequited love. I am a living person. I have the right to choose my own life, and you are now the past that I have given up on. Do you understand what I mean?" Chapter 23, Lucas Albright understood, but he just wanted to feign ignorance. He couldn't accept the fact that she had moved on, shaking his head desperately, his face filled with pain and despair. "I don't understand, Rosalie. Please don't say such things, okay?" For the second time, Rosalie Atherton saw such a fragile and helpless expression on his face. She remembered the last time was on the day she learned the truth. She had dazedly helped a drunk Lucas home. He had held her, calling Syl all night. At dawn, he fell asleep, and her heart completely died. Though it had only been a little over a month, thinking back now, it felt too distant, like something that happened in a previous life. Time truly was the best medicine for healing wounds. Faced with his unreasonable attempts to keep her, Rosalie's heart remained unmoved. She calmly lowered her head, looked at the wound on his right hand, and spoke softly. "Denial doesn't change anything, nor can it cover up wounds that once existed, much less overturn the fact that I no longer love you. Lucas Albright, for the sake of the 8 years I genuinely liked you, please stop disturbing me." After speaking, Rosalie took one last look at Lucas, who was now speechless. Tears welled up in his slightly reddened eyes. But she didn't care why his tears were flowing. A light rain began to fall from the sky. She didn't linger any longer and jogged into the residential complex. She ran further and further away, and the rain fell harder and harder. Cold raindrops fell on Lucas's face, mixing with warm tears, rolling down, soaking his clothes and wound. Blood dripped again. The rain fell all night without stopping. Rosalie slept and woke up, thinking she would have to cancel today's plans, but the sky suddenly cleared. She picked up her phone and saw a message from Ethan Lindsay saying he was already on his way. She quickly got up and got ready, rushing, and finally made it downstairs just as he parked. The air after the rain was very fresh. The old men doing their morning exercises gathered together, discussing someone who had fainted downstairs late last night. Rosalie, rushing out, didn't hear any of this. She hurriedly walked to the entrance and saw Ethan waiting by the car. He waved at her, and after she ran over, he handed her the warm breakfast he had bought in advance. "Uncle David said you like soy milk and shumai, so I bought them from the place I think is the best. See if you like the taste." Rosalie hadn't expected him to inquire about such small details. Besides being surprised, she was also a little touched. After breakfast, the two set off for the flower market. Because the journey was long, they chatted idly the whole time, from family matters to workplace gossip, from embarrassing childhood stories to future plans, talking about everything under the sun. When they got to the topic of choosing a partner and views on love, Rosalie finally couldn't help but ask him a question that had been on her mind for a long time. "Ethan, you're 3 years older than me. Why haven't you gotten married yet, ending up in the same situation as me, being pressured into matchmaking?" Ethan knew she was just curious, but he still paused for a second. He turned to look at her, a gentle expression in his eyes. "I was busy with my studies before. After graduating from university, I went straight for my master's and doctorate. After graduating last year, I was busy with work, so it got delayed. To be precise, I've never been that concerned about love and marriage. I always feel that life has infinite possibilities, and there's no need to limit one's perspective to marriage and family. So my thought is, if I meet someone I like and who is suitable, we'll be together. If there's really no fate, being alone is also fine. Indeed, a PhD." His perspective was so broad. Rosalie marveled at his views on marriage and love and inadvertently asked another question. "So, you've changed your mind and agreed to matchmaking now. Have you found someone suitable?" The moment the words left her mouth, Rosalie realized something was wrong. Just as she was about to say something to rectify it, she heard a firm and calm voice beside her. Only 2 words, yet they made her heart pound wildly. "Of course." Chapter 24, Lucas Albright refused to listen to advice, insisting on staying downstairs in the rain, waiting for Rosalie Atherton to change her mind. As a result, just as it struck midnight, he couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. Sean Yates rushed him to the hospital overnight. After an examination, the doctor said the wound was infected and told him to quickly send Lucas to Northbridge First Hospital. Sean was so scared he almost fainted himself. Trembling, he called the Albright family to explain the situation. At 3 in the morning, Lucas, with a persistent high fever, was put on a plane back to Northbridge. Before dawn the next day, he was in the operating room. But an hour after he went in, the doctor rushed out and brought devastating news. The wound infection is severe. With the current medical standards in the country, to save his life, we can only amputate his right hand. If conditions permit, sending him to Europe now might offer a chance to save his right hand. Eleanor Albright fainted on the spot upon hearing this. Arthur Albright's face also turned pale, but he remained relatively calm. He immediately contacted people to arrange a plane and made many calls to doctors in Europe. That afternoon, Lucas was sent abroad. Arthur accompanied him. 3 days later, after the doctor's efforts, Lucas's right hand was saved. However, all the nerves were dead, and he could no longer control his finger movements. Simply put, it could only serve as a decoration. The Albright family did not consider this good news. Because the rain had caused a systemic infection, Lucas remained unconscious in the intensive care unit after the surgery. The doctor said the situation was very pessimistic. Even if he woke up, there would be many complications to treat slowly. It was a long and difficult treatment process. And indeed, things turned out as the doctor predicted. Lucas woke up on the 3rd day after the surgery, but abnormalities appeared all over his body. He had to undergo numerous tests daily, take various medications, and be monitored 24 hours a day. Time passed day by day. The brief spring passed, followed by a long summer. After listening to the cicadas in the hospital for over 5 months, on the day of the White Dew Solar term, Lucas was finally discharged. After leaving the hospital, he boarded a plane back to his country. Throughout the journey, he watched the drifting white clouds outside the window without resting. His face, tormented by medication and so thin it was almost unrecognizable, showed no expression. During this time, he had grown accustomed to the feeling of pain. Now, suddenly returning to a sub-healthy state, he felt somewhat unaccustomed. After the plane landed in Northbridge, his old group of friends all rushed to the airport to pick up Lucas. Seeing his current haggard appearance, everyone showed pained expressions, racking their brains for various topics to cheer him up. It's unknown which thoughtless person suddenly mentioned Sylvia Morgan. Old Luke, Sylvia Morgan and that Grove guy got married half a month ago. They even sent an invitation over, but don't worry, none of us went. Hearing this, the atmosphere in the car instantly chilled. Sean Yates shot a glare at the tactless person, and just as he was about to say something to change the subject, Lucas suddenly spoke. "Married is married, what's the big deal?" Seeing his nonchalant attitude, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Sean thought that having walked through the gates of hell, Lucas had seen through the illusions of the world and let go of the past, so he casually mentioned, "Exactly, married is married. Who doesn't get married when they reach that age? Isn't Rosalie Atherton also getting married soon?" Someone's phone clattered to the floor. Thud. Chapter 25, Rosalie Atherton and Ethan Lindsay's wedding was set for the day of Frost's descent, said to be an auspicious day for all endeavors. Lucas Albright flew to Riverbend a day early and sat alone in his hotel room all night. The next day at 10, he changed into a suit and went to the wedding venue alone. The person collecting gift money was from the Lindsay family's side and didn't recognize him, asking for his name. He didn't give his name, only said it was a collective gift from classmates, and asked them to just note, "high school classmate." After watching these 4 words being written down, Lucas took out a card from his pocket and, under the astonished gazes of everyone, said calmly, "The pin, Miss Atherton knows it. Please tell her she must accept it. This is a small token from us old classmates. We wish her happiness." The wedding was held at a hotel halfway up the mountain. The hall was enveloped in a sea of pink roses, filled with joyous laughter everywhere. Lucas casually found an empty table and sat down, quietly waiting for the ceremony to begin. At 12 o'clock, the wedding began on time. Rosalie, wearing a beautiful wedding dress, walked down the aisle arm in arm with her father amidst thunderous applause. David Atherton personally handed his daughter over to Ethan Lindsay. Lucas also saw Rosalie's face, full of happiness. Her lips constantly carried a smile, and she seemed a little nervous, frequently glancing at the groom beside her. Ethan, noticing her emotions, would always give her an incredibly gentle smile whenever she turned her head. The two stood under the spotlight, facing their closest family and friends, solemnly exchanging vows to stay together for a lifetime, hand in hand. After exchanging rings, everyone was cheering, asking the newlyweds to kiss. The moment Ethan lifted the veil, Lucas stood up and left the venue. No one noticed his departure. Everyone was celebrating the new couple. He walked out of the hotel alone and, along the winding mountain road, had the driver take him further up the mountain. In late autumn, the verdant mountaintop had changed its appearance, adorned in new clothes of orange, red, and yellow. The wind scattered the remaining leaves hanging on the branches, fluttering towards the roadside, finally dropping a red maple leaf on the windshield wiper. Looking at the fallen leaf before him, Lucas asked the driver to pull over and rolled down the window. The cold wind rushed in, blowing away the hair that covered his eyes, revealing his slightly reddened eye sockets. Perhaps it was dust in his eyes. A wave of tears welled up, and he quickly squeezed his eyes shut. A pitch-black darkness fell before him, but some memories in his mind uncontrollably surged out. It was this time last year. He had finished his flight work from Australia to Northbridge early and returned to the apartment, chilled to the bone. The lights in the living room were off, but the bedroom light was still on. He thought Rosalie had fallen asleep waiting for him again and deliberately lightened his steps. When he reached the door, he realized she wasn't asleep yet and was on the phone with someone. He didn't know who was on the other end, but her tone was very happy, filled with joyous laughter. "I want to get married next year, but I don't know if my wish will come true. Do you think Luke will want to wait a few more years to get married? Maybe I should wait a few more years for him. Getting married as soon as we reach the legal age does sound a bit absurd. For the wedding, I want to have it in autumn, preferably on a mountain. I think it's quiet there, and the autumn scenery and weather are good. To complete the most important ceremony of my life in such a beautiful season, marrying the person I love most, should be a memory I'll never forget for the rest of my life." To this day, Lucas still remembered the undisguised longing and anticipation in her voice. He could even imagine her lying in bed, her feet swinging, her fingers twirling her hair. That was a scene he had witnessed countless times, thus ingrained in his memory. At that time, he only thought it was ordinary. With the passage of time, everything had become a relic of the past in the west wind, only for remembrance. He and Rosalie could never go back to how things were. The guilt and regret that tormented him, making him restless, would eventually become an unbearable hidden pain for the rest of his life. And the proposal and wedding Rosalie had waited for, the future and happiness she had longed for, had all come true. Only the main character had changed. But what did that matter? As long as she was happy. Tears finally broke through his defenses, sliding down the scar on his face. Seeing his boss cry, the driver was momentarily at a loss. He pondered for a long time and finally quietly opened the car door and got out. In the narrow compartment, only the faint, almost inaudible sound of a song remained, and continuous, choked sobs. "You and I did not meet before the mountain, may we not meet again behind it."